Tonight we got Bruce Cuff here to give our opening prayer, and also he will be speaking a little bit about what's going on in the governor's race. We will hear from the Moss family, and they're joined by Victoria Sharp, who I don't know if you recognize that name, but Victoria was writing in the I had to ask her if I should introduce her and make sure everyone knew her background. I didn't want to make her uncomfortable, but she has been very helpful for me to understand what went on there, and I'm sure that she was for you also. Okay, so they're going to sing some songs for us, and then we will hear from, after them, we'll hear from Bruce Cuff about the governor's race, followed by an hour and a half with Sheriff Mack. And so with that, I will ask our Mr. Bruce Cuff to come up and open us with a prayer.
You guys all stand up. Take your hats off, please. Father God, we dedicate this night to you. Father, I just pray that your Holy Spirit would fill this place with your presence, Lord, and that you'd have your hand on Sheriff Mack as he shares with us, and just open our hearts and our minds. Father, we need to bring this state together. We need to bring this country together. And there's just many, many things that we as believers in you can do if we just step out in faith. Father, we dedicate this time to you, and we ask this all in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
And now if you'd join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And thank you. Now, before we go any further, I would like to recognize any public officials. I see Commissioner Crawford back there. Seth, thanks for coming. Is there anyone else here that's one of our local leaders? I'd like to recognize you. You're here? Okay, well, thanks for coming, Seth. And with that, we're going to hear some great music from the Moss family and Victoria.
All right, thank you all for coming out. I guess we'll start off here with more of a church tune since Easter Sunday is coming up, so I hope you like it. Straight and narrow way, what you call
say, listen up, folks, like a song to say, boys, my mind is now. Well, it took a little while for we're in this town. We ain't going home till we done what's right. Young things can down driving night, but I haven't spent my last town. When I first got started, it was over my day. Girl, who could get seen? And the name on against my brain. 6 months and I'm gone. Well, she asked what I say, I said that I'm high. Don't get around, never said I lied. Never running out of my London line. Never see that hair straight along. I'm trying to cover any number marching home. Chest full of battles, energy all low. We waiting out the station down in San Antonio. Johnny comes marching home.
So we're going to sing the Prineville version of the Hanging Tree. And if you all know it, I'd like you to join me in that, please.
You got the words. We're trying to find it real fast. You want a copy? Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. Why?
Here, go on.
I'll give you a.
Are you going to agree? Our freedoms are waning and the lose our liberty. Slipping one by one until there's nothing left to see. Are you willing to stand with me? Are you just going to let it be? The ranchers are first, our brothers, next it may be me. We'll all stand together or we'll hang separately. Are you going to the tree? Are you willing to
thanks you guys, that was great. So, at this time, I'd like to introduce Bruce Cuff. He's running for the office of governor, and so here's Bruce Cuff.
I'm going to be real short because you can come back on March 31st and look at the schedule here. March 31st is going to be a GOP meeting at Calvary Baptist Church at 5:30. So you can hear me speak then. We're here to basically hear Sheriff Mack tonight. What I'm running on is getting local control back in our communities. The current governor that we have, Kate Brown, it's okay to boo if you want. She was appointed. She's not. She wasn't elected, but she's operating in the state as if she has a mandate to govern. She's the governor. However, in Oregon, we set up a 35-day annual session that started a few years ago, and what the Democrats, the leadership there of the Democratic Party, told us was that this was just for tweak the budget and get out of town. Right? And this year they broke faith with the people of Oregon, big time. They passed substantive legislation in regards to minimum wage that's going to hurt our state. On the ballot, they're looking at increasing business taxes in the state by 250%, just driving businesses out. So I'd love to have your support in this race. I'm one of 5 running. I'm the only conservative in the race. So, like I said, I'll be back on the 31st, and tonight we're here to hear Sheriff Mack, and we need 36 constitutional sheriffs in Oregon. Every single county.
Okay, thank you. And now in the way of an introduction, I know many of you know who Sheriff Mack is, but I thought for those that haven't had a chance to hear him speak or read his materials, I would just give him the credits to his career that he deserves. So bear with me, and I will just hit some of the highlights. There's much more. So Sheriff Mack has about 20 years in law enforcement. He served 11 years in Provo, Utah Police Department in various roles, including time as detective and undercover narcotics officer. He was elected sheriff of Grand County, Arizona in 1988. He served there as sheriff until 1997. He's a graduate of the FBI National Academy, and he has too many roles during his law enforcement career to list, but here are a few: narcotics, hostage negotiator, youth officer, front desk sergeant, detective, sheriff, jail administrator, and so on. It's a long list. In the way of recognitions and awards, he was elected Official of the Year by the Arizona New Mexico Coalition of Counties in 1994. He was the NRA Law Officer of the Year and inducted into the NRA Hall of Fame. He got the 1995 Cicero Award. Do you know what that is? Cicero Award is for speech givers and speech writers recognizing their contribution. He also received the Samuel Adams Leadership Award and the Gun Owners of America Defender of the Second Amendment Award. In 1994, Sheriff Mack and 6 other sheriffs challenged the constitutionality of enforcing the Brady Bill, which you all know about, and which went all the way to the Supreme Court. And after a 3-year battle, they won a landmark 5-4 decision based on the 10th Amendment to the Constitution. This was a huge achievement. Mack has been a consultant on numerous cases regarding police abuse, brutality, and other misconduct by public officials. He's an author and speaker, and for the last few years, Sheriff Mack has spoken at about 70 different Tea Party rallies all over the country, ranging from Honolulu to Bangor, Maine. So Mack continues working to educate our sheriffs nationwide about their powers to protect their constituents from abuse by the federal government. He's a graduate of Brigham Young University, and he lives with his wife in Gilbert, Arizona. Please welcome Sheriff Richard Mack.
Don DeLuise, when he was on Ed Sullivan's show, he'd always say, save it for the end. Let's save that for the end, if you will. And let's join together tonight in our efforts to save America. And let me reiterate something to you right off the bat here. This is not about a revolution. This is about a restoration. We're going to put America back just the way the Founding Fathers intended it to be.
Yes.
There's nothing subversive about that. There's nothing revolutionary about it. The Revolutionary War was already won. Some people say it wasn't really a revolutionary war. Some people actually say it was a civil war. And regardless, it was done by very few of the colonists who lived in America at the time. But it plain and simply happened because they got to the point that they couldn't take the abuse anymore. And so that's where we're headed. We're going to avoid having to do it again. There is still a peaceful way to do this. And that's what we're about. The CSPOA that I started, and that's the reason I'm here in front of you tonight, is not a lobby group. We're not even a political group. We're an education group. We are a restoration group. We are an American group. We are a liberty group. Many people have called us and said, please help me, I just got my home foreclosed. Many people say, help me, my son just got arrested. Some people even call and say, I got a traffic ticket. What can you guys do about it? I tell them to wear their seatbelt and drive carefully. Okay? But that's not what we do. We are here to work with you so that you are working with your sheriff to restore liberty in your county. And this is a movement to take back America county by county, state by state. One sheriff and one county at a time. Hopefully we have lots of counties doing that. And we have about 3,080 sheriffs in America. We have determined that we can actually do this. We don't need, you say 36 sheriffs in?
36 in Oregon. 36 in Oregon?
We only have 15 in Arizona. We have huge counties in Arizona. I think Nevada's only 19. Utah's 29, some of the bigger states, huge counties. But doesn't matter how many you have, but we have figured that we're not going to get all of them, are we? We're not going to get all of them. But we can do this if we take back, or if we get a fourth. Just give me 700 or 800 sheriffs. And we're going to take America back. With that many, just a fourth. You know, a lot of people say, well, it was only 3% that fought the Revolutionary War. That's a little bit of a misnomer. If you read some of the letters that John Adams wrote to his wife Abigail while he was in Europe for 3 years, away from his family for 3 years, negotiating loans and support from Europe. And if we hadn't had France help us towards the latter half of the war, of the Revolutionary War, we would have never won. But France brought their navy in and really made the difference in the victory of the Revolutionary War. So John Adams was to diplomacy and George Washington was to the actual running of the military aspects of the war. And he said to his wife in one of his letters that it appears that about a third of the people support the war. So I believe that's really where it lines up today as far as supporting liberty. We have 1/3 of the people that support freedom and liberty in our Constitution in this country. We have another third who could care less And we have another third who totally support the tyrants, the Tories of America today. So the Tories and loyalists are there. No matter what, we're going to side with government. Government's good. Government takes care of us. Government gives us free stuff. You know that free stuff has never been freedom. Never. And the bigger government gets, the smaller liberty shrinks. You can't have both. You can't have both big government, huge, humongous government, and abundant freedom. As government grows, freedom shrinks. And so, in looking at that whole picture today, that's why we came up with, it appears to be one of the only, maybe not even a handful of peaceful, effective solutions that we have left. And so we're trying to do everything we can to avoid the violence and another civil war, revolutionary war, whatever you want to call it. So this is why I'm here today. And I formed the CSPOA about 6 years ago. And right after I wrote the book, the county sheriff, America's Last Hope. And this gave birth to the constitutional sheriff movement. And it was such an amazing book, only 50 pages long, but it just took off. And it's self-published. I had a publisher looking it over and was trying to get it going. And I fired him. I said, just send it back to me. I'll do it myself. I just don't have patience with people that don't move when I tell them. so I just took it back and I self-published it. It's done about 100,000 copies. And if you don't have it, you join CSPOA tonight, we give you this one. And you get the sequel, Are You a David? For 30% off, 33% off. So this, and why do I have these here? Because they're tools of liberty. And before you take these to your sheriff, which every one of you should do, you need to read it yourself. Don't take the sheriff's stuff that you don't know about. Okay? He's gonna be wanting you, or you're gonna be wanting him. We want you to talk to him about it. Okay? You have to know what you're talking about. Very powerful books. And this is kind of the manual for the constitutional sheriff. And then, during the first 5 years of this being out, I heard all the excuses from sheriffs and some of the other problems with what's going on pursuant to this book. And I responded to all of them in this sequel, Are You a David? I want to know, are you a David? And you women? Are you a David?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
I'm willing to stand against Goliath. And the book defines who Goliath is and what we need to do to neutralize him. And the way to neutralize him isn't going in front of him and waving a red flag and saying, come and get me. Okay? Remember, we're working together with our sheriffs. And we're going to go through that process tonight. Now, I'm going to show you the evidence. And I've been here before. How many of you were here when I spoke here 5, 6 years ago? Raise your hand if you were here. Oh, good. Most of you knew. Okay, good. Everybody's new just about it. 90% of you are good. So, we've got a lot of work to do tonight. I'm going to try to stay focused. I'm going to see where we go with doing question and answer. I hope to answer most of your questions during the process. And if we have time, does that clock say 6:30? Yes, it does. Okay, I can't really see it because the light's shining in my eyes. So we'll see if we have time for some question and answer. I do like to hear from you, but remember, are you listening? Okay, good. It has to be a question. If you get up and give your own talk, I'll stop you and I'll say, hey, where's the question? Where's the question? Everybody knows the rules on that. It has to be a question. You hear me? All right, good. Okay. Is it on behind me right now? Okay, good. Looks like we're up and running. This first clip I'm going to show you is a deputy sheriff in Albany, New York, by the name of Deputy Stan Lennox. And he's actually working security in the Albany airport in New York. And I'm going to tell you right now, this deputy is all we're after. This is what we want. When we formed the CSPOA, this epitomizes what we want. Go ahead and give my arrow. Play.
The YouTube video viral, posted on the internet by two activists who were a camera into the International Airport while they passed out flyers. Now, it led to a heated dispute over First Amendment rights. That's our top story. That's how many of our you'll see in the video clip that airport spokesman tries to stop these activists from their mission. But a sheriff's deputy steps in to settle the confrontation and the right to free speech.
Hey everyone, this is Dr. Jessica. I'm here at Albany International Airport.
The young woman is standing outside the security checkpoint at the airport, found with a camera that she's there to hand out flyers to travelers, reminding them of their right to opt out of getting a body scan, which she claims carries health risks. Airport spokesman Doug Myers tells the crew to stop videotaping and to go downstairs, which they agreed to do, and they are confronted again.
We have $1 million insurance policy here to violate the airport authority guidelines. That doesn't matter to us at all. Okay,
But as the tension builds, Sheriff's Deputy Stan Lennox steps in, separating the two parties, then lays down the law.
Obviously, this is a constitutional right, okay? As far as we're concerned, you're not breaking any laws, okay? That's what we want to get across to you guys.
Myers objects, ordering airport employees to allow taking passengers upstairs, accusing the activists of blocking the escalator. But once again, Deputy Lennox defends their First Amendment rights. The activists continue their mission. The video later posted to YouTube and goes viral, not the kind of attention Deputy Lennox is used to.
That's a little overwhelming. I was doing my job, I did the right thing, and I felt I did the right thing, protecting people's First Amendment rights.
Okay. So we had a CSPOA convention in St. Charles, Missouri back in 2013. This had happened just a few months before that. And we honored him as Deputy Sheriff, CSPOA Deputy Sheriff of the Year. The same convention that we had where we honored Sheriff David A. Clark Jr. from Milwaukee as a CSPOA Sheriff of the Year that year. Our first CSPOA Sheriff of the Year was right here from Oregon, Sheriff Glenn Palmer. Coincidentally, Sheriff Palmer was the first sheriff in America to ask me for our training. This was about 15 years ago, before we even had a CSPOA. But I was doing constitutional training for law enforcement at that time. I didn't do it very often. It was the first one ever, and I'd done it for little departments here and there before that, and I certainly did it for my agency when I was sheriff. The Sheriff Palmer was the first one in the country to have that training. The training that we offer every sheriff in the country. And as a matter of fact, in 2 weeks from today, I'll be in Virginia doing it again, and we've had 2 sheriffs in Virginia, Culpeper and Greene counties, that have had the training just within the last 6 or 7 months. So we want to do this for every sheriff's office and state sheriff's association in the country, and that's where you come in. You have to realize how powerful you are in influencing the sheriff. If the sheriff hears from you, and he hears maybe 10, 12 of you asking him about reading the book or having the constitutional training, or asking him plain and simply, Sheriff, are you a constitutional sheriff? And then vet him about that. And then see if he'll do the training and try to get him. If he has a dozen people ask him about that, you know what he's going to do? He's going to go home and tell his wife, I've got everybody in the community talking to me about the CSPOA, this constitutional sheriff stuff. my gosh, I'm gonna have to do it or something. They won't get off my back. And the first convention that we had back in 2012 in Las Vegas, we had 95 sheriffs show up, and about half of them reported, oh, those Tea Party groups, they just wouldn't leave me alone until I agreed to go to this convention. And they admitted it. I mean, the sheriff said, I'm here because the Tea Party groups kept after me to come. And it showed once again the power of we the people. And so, just so you know, this is all we're after. And this deputy sheriff gets it. What did he do? He told the airport authority, a guy who has a lot to do with hiring police at the airport, he told them, I'm not going to give you their identification. They don't have to give you their identification. He's defending would-be suspects. You know those people that hand out flyers? You gotta watch it. And so the deputy is not going to abuse his authority, misuse his badge, and get all hot and bothered and emotional trying to defend. Did you hear what the guy said? It was a little bit muffled. And I wanted that to be just a little bit louder. But he said, do you have $1 million insurance policy? Then you're violating guidelines of the airport. Is that kind of typical? That we ignore the Constitution, or that we throw and trample on it while we support the guidelines of the state, or we support the statutory traffic laws above the Constitution? Doesn't everybody know that there is no law that supersedes the Constitution, and nothing in the Constitution that supersedes the Bill of Rights? Do we know why the founders put the Bill of Rights added to this Constitution? At first, Madison was mad at Samuel Adams and Patrick Henry and a few of the other radicals, John Hancock. A few of these guys, these right-wing radical conservatives. And he says, the Constitution was great. We were inspired by God, and now you guys come back. He says, I find that offensive. What's the matter with you guys? And they said, James, come on. It doesn't have a Declaration of Rights. And they got it. He goes, you know what, you're right. Let's get back to the drawing board. This is 2 years after the Constitution was signed and already in effect. He says, we didn't go far enough, you're right. And so they said, let's get together and form this declaration. Do you know how many they came up with? How many would we come up with today if we did? I know. They did the same thing. 189. That's the original Bill of Rights. And they said, no, come on. We got to keep this simple. That'll be longer than the original Constitution. And they dwindled them down to 12. And the states, the real power here, the states ratified 10. And these were what I call the untouchables. They cannot be touched by government. We came up, the founders came up with a few set of rules and principles, and there's not just 10, is there? There's not 10. There's 5 in the First Amendment alone. So you add them all up, there's about 27 or 28 in the Bill of Rights. 10 Bill of Rights. Did you name the 5 in the First Amendment? Freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of speech, right to peaceably assemble, and to file grievances against the government. Those are the 5. And then, of course, the Second Amendment. Third is that they can't force their way in, soldiers can't force their way into your home. You know that happens? The Hessians and Redcoats would just come to somebody's house and say, we live here now. We're going to occupy your home. Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, you parents, you now live with the kids in the loft because we're taking them out of the bedroom. And they would just live there. And then they would do their policing during the day, okay? And so that's why the Third Amendment is in there, is to prevent that. And so overall, what was the purpose of the Constitution? Well, we all know about the, placing limitations and parameters on government. Okay? But the real intent of the Founding Fathers when they wrote that document was to what? Make sure that all the abuse and tyranny from King George III could never happen again. And so when they came back 2 years later, they said, okay, we did pretty good there, and yes, it was inspired, and it was an amazing miracle, but let's make sure that all King George III leaders or presidents of this great country from now on to infinity will never make any mistake what we mean. There's these 10 principles that they can't touch. And somehow, we've let them touch them. Way have we let them touch them. The Second Amendment itself has over 20,000 laws against it in this country. 20,000. 20,000 violations. And how did it ever happen that they received regulatory authority over God-given untouchable rights? Because we've gone to sleep, and we have a lot of work to do, and we're going to take all these back. And remember, the solution is a constitutional sheriff who will enforce the Constitution and put liberty first with us working with him or her. There's about 15 female sheriffs in America that we will work with him. In fact, one of those female sheriffs is on the front of the book, and that's Sheriff Pamela Elliott from Edwards County, Texas. Now, I was going to be on the front of that book. It's my book. I can put myself on the front if I want to. But I fired me, and I put her on there. And the reason I did is because I thought it'd be a great attention getter, an eye-catching attention getter, that a female is on the front. And some people say she looks like a kid because she looks so young. She is young, but not that young. She looks pretty young there. But Goliath is coming up behind her. And she's ready. She's not really that concerned because she knows that she has the upper hand. See, she's armed. And he's bringing a spear to a gunfight. So we really intend for this to go so far with the constitutional sheriffs and with us backing them that they will stand against gun control. And they will stop gun. Do you want to stop gun control? Have a constitutional sheriff stops it. And he puts the federal government on notice. You're not going to come to my county and confiscate guns. Ever! You're not going to do it. Not in my county. If the people in this county want somebody else to be their sheriff, if they want some women to be sheriff, it's not going to happen. You know why? Because I took an oath that said I wouldn't do it. And I heard Sheriff Clark from Milwaukee. You see him on Fox News a lot. And Sheriff Clark says the same thing. I took an oath. Just because other people don't keep their oath doesn't put any obligation on me to go along with that. I'm going to uphold and defend the Constitution because that's what I promised the people I would do when I took my job. Some of the excuses that I hear, not all of them are in here, a lot of them are, but it's amazing what excuses I hear from sheriffs and other public officials as to how we can't obey the Constitution. Why? Well, because the federal government will withhold funding if we do. We'll stop sending money to Washington, D.C., and then they won't be able to withhold it from you anymore. Okay? They'll withhold it from you. You withhold it from them. Where do you think they get their money? Stop sending it to them. And you know what? Seriously? Ted Cruz talks about abolishing the IRS, which I don't think he'll ever do, or even if he got it in there, I don't think it's not going to happen. But you want to stop it? Have your state collect all federal income taxes and all federal taxes from the state. Then you send on to them what you think they need, not what they say they need. And then that'll stop that $19 trillion debt. And they'll have to follow the Constitution in their financial expenditures. Amazing how we have the power to do that. And I actually heard a public official from Harney County, I think it was the judge or head county commissioner or something. He says, you know, giving the land back to the counties and the states, the numbers just don't add up, he said. The numbers just don't add up. What numbers is that? You know what he's talking about? We wouldn't be able to financially run the land here because the federal government has all the money. That's what he meant. They have all the money. The money that they're using, why can't you use that? Okay? Especially after you cut out all the middleman, it'll be too much money there to do that with. But you see, these politicians and the people that we have in office today are so brainwashed into believing this corrupt system needs to be supported. I have a very solid question for you and all of them. Who is in charge of maintaining liberty in your county? Who's in charge of that? I want to know.
We are.
Please tell me the constitutional lawful answer to that. Because most of these public officials will tell you, give me a minute on that one, would you? Who's in charge of defending liberty in this county? Do you know what it's going to boil down to? They're going to ultimately tell you that they can't interfere or intervene on your behalf against federal agents breaking the law.
It's happening in Nevada right now.
The sheriff can't intervene? How about if I show you the evidence that that is absolutely not true? Okay? Absolutely not true. He has a moral and constitutional and judiciary responsibility to you to do exactly that. I know you're with me on that.
I'm hearing you.
Okay, so, as you know, I sued the federal government and won a case at the U.S. Supreme Court. That decision plays quite a big role in my presentation because Scalia, God rest his soul, wrote this decision and perfectly laid out an equation for liberty as to how we take America back. And it's an amazing one, all dealing with a balance of power between the states and the federal government. Do we have that balance of power today? No. So who's going to have to tip the scales back the other way? Do you really think there's any way that could ever be the federal government? And that only the federal government can determine how far their authority extends. Only them. Do you know that everybody knows that's absolutely not true? Even them. But they want us to believe it anyway. So we'll leave them alone. Yes, my dear friends, we hope and plan for the day when our constitutional sheriffs will arrest federal agents for breaking the law in their communities. Yes. We believe it. However, let me reiterate something that you need to understand. We do not advocate that you act carelessly and go do some sort of civil disobedience and leave him completely out of it, and you go and do something and you get in trouble and you say, it don't matter, my sheriff's going to get me out of trouble. That's not the way it works, my friend. You need to respect and work with your sheriff before you go and do some civil disobedience, or before you wave the red flag at the light, okay? And you get the sheriff's support and assistance and appraisal before that happens, okay? Because right now we're not running out there and with our guns and releasing all the IRS prisoners, are we? And my brothers-in-law were in IRS prisons while I was sheriff. And they were over near El Paso, Texas, in prison. And they were found not guilty in court. Not guilty. They were given 40 years each, and they were found not guilty by a jury of their peers. And I didn't form a posse, and I didn't form a militia, and I didn't run on that prison to get them out of there. And they were innocent. And there's no way I would have done that at that time. And there might be a time we can, but we need a lot more numbers on this first. And we want to release those people, and we want to put the IRS in its place. And is there anybody in this country, even the most liberal idiots that we have around here, that don't know and realize that the IRS has been a criminal organization for the past 60, 70 years? Probably since the day of its inception. And they've been political hitmen, and they've been used to commit crimes against the American people. And I'm going to show you a picture of a lady up here by the name of Jennifer Long that was an IRS agent. And And she blew the whistle on them and all the crimes that they commit in fabricating evidence against American citizens who they knew could not financially defend themselves. You know why they keep track of your finances? Because they know how much you can afford to pay on their cheat sheets. And they'll cheat you out as much as they can according to your ability to pay. That's what they do. And they fabricate that. And she says they even break the law when they do that. And there's been one of them that has gotten arrested or in trouble for it. And we're going to show you some interesting things here. You're going to be able to mix some of this up with some clips and stuff where we're making this a little bit interesting. I hope you don't go to sleep. It's not boring. I guarantee you this is not boring. Restoring freedom in America is not boring. Okay? And that's what we're doing. Go ahead, hit the right arrow here. We're going to bypass that. Right arrow. No, don't play right arrow. There you go. Okay, Martin Luther King. We really want people to understand this principle. This principle, okay? And this is this. We're going to use one of their guys against them, and that's Martin Luther King. I love this. There are two types of laws, just and unjust. I would be the first to advocate obeying just laws. One has a moral responsibility to obey, I usually have this in front of me. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. A moral responsibility. And when you do that, your sheriff should be standing right next to you. Do you realize how that adds to civil disobedience? That's a powerful, powerful situation. And we have Sheriff Marty Glee right now in Utah. And we have him on record saying, and this has just come out, it's going all over the internet. I got another email about him today. And he says, he said in a meeting, in a public meeting, if I have to deputize every man, woman, and child in my county, we will stop the BLM crimes. Okay, right here, okay, next one. All right, that's the oath of office, and this supersedes any other lawful responsibility that your sheriff may have. It supersedes the drug order. It supersedes traffic laws. His oath to you in God's name that He will protect and defend your God-given constitutional rights is in this oath, and nothing supersedes this oath. Here is His responsibility and duty. Herein lies His job in this oath. And He swears it in God's name to each of you. And the excuses that we give just totally baffle me. Totally baffle me. Wow. Next one. Go ahead and play it. Well, we got to get the sound higher somewhere on that. Can you hit it on the computer? Yeah, go higher. But we'll leave it like that. Read the subtitles. hope you can get the sound up on the next one a little higher for me, but anyway, you saw this. Can you believe a movie from Hollywood? First time I ever saw anybody anywhere talk about the significance of the oath of office. And did you see the real significance? To the boss of America. You gave your word to the people of the United States. We are the boss. We, the people. First three words of the entire Constitution. You gave your word to the president's boss. And this is so vital. The founding fathers required the oath in the Article 6 of the Constitution, that all three branches would be doing what? Working together, not control. How is it that law enforcement, being part of the executive branch, thinks that the other two branches completely control it? Thereby negating the separation of powers. We always say, oh, we don't make the laws, we just have to enforce them. So we're servants and puppets to the legislature. That's not true. We are not. We are a check and balance on the legislature. Oh, we have to do whatever a judge tells us to do. That is not true either. I told judges no before. They're not my boss. We work together to do what? Uphold, defend, protect, and preserve the United States Constitution. All three branches doing that together with we the people, we preserve liberty. And that's what the founding fathers were concerned about. And that's why we got the untouchables, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution. Next one. That's the requirement. That's Article 6 of the Constitution. Requires every public official in the states and the federal government to swear allegiance to the Constitution. Wow. Next one. State notification. Talked about Madison. Madison talked about it, and Jefferson talked about it. A great deal, by the way. Did I make that notification? No. And yet so many people think it's such a radical idea. There's nothing radical about it. It's called enforcing the 10th Amendment. Can I ask you another legal question? Who has the constitutional and moral and lawful duty to enforce the 10th Amendment? Is there any way that's the federal government? No, that's a joke. It's a check and balance on them. And then we sit back and let them steal all this other authority because they pay us money that we send to them in the first place. It's absolute insanity, and we're going to vote more of those people in this year. If you think that sending another Democrat or Republican to Washington, D.C. is going to restore freedom in this country, I've got beachfront property for you in Omaha. Because it's not going to happen. And Patrick Henry said, I only know to judge the future, but by the past. And judging by the past, what does it give you any hope that there's going to be any change? And we take back America in our own community. Stop donating to national campaigns and take care of Oregon and take care of your county. And start there again. County by county, sheriff by sheriff, and state by state. That's how freedom and liberty will grow. We need you involved in that process. CSPOA needs county representation from Oregonians. Thank you. I was going to say ducks. But I didn't want you beavers to get mad at me. Hey, you know what? I'm probably the only one in Arizona that likes both the University of Arizona and ASU. I grew up in Arizona. They're both Arizona schools. I love them both. Always have. Got recruited to play basketball at U of H, and I still like ASU as much. So, done that. So, yeah, good. He also argued, look at this. He's talking about Madison and Jefferson. He also argued that the state should refuse to enforce laws that they deem to be unconstitutional, not the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court doesn't make law. How do we know that the President and the Supreme Court cannot make law? Right after the preamble is Article 1, Section 1. And it says all legislative authority, all legislative powers are vested herein in a Congress. How much? All. That's 100%. President has no legislative power. Courts have no legislative power. Can they rule on something? Yeah. Does it get ignored all the time? All the time. My Supreme Court decision gets overruled and ignored. Not overruled, ignored all the time. You know who's supposed to be following my decision? Congress and the President. Sure they will. Now I'm going to show you some of that too. Next one. Look at that word in gold. I love that word. It is a principle. It is a doctrine. Interpose. Interpose. Do you know what interpose means? It's just another way of saying interfere or put yourself in the way. Making it messy for Goliath. And the good sheriff, the good constitutional sheriff, sees the possible or potential victim here, one of you. And the federal government's coming in, Goliath is coming in, and it's just like in basketball. He puts himself in the way. And he moves, your sheriff moves. Just like in basketball, playing solid defense. He's not threatening, he's not shooting, he's not even going for his gun. He has it on though. And he puts himself in the way, and that's exactly what interpose means. And you interpose, what does it say there? State legislature is duty bound to interpose its power to prevent its people from being victimized by the federal government. Well, that's way back in 1786. Way back. They understood human nature. They understood government. They understood how people lust after power, Hillary Clinton. And so it's crazy that we don't get it today after all those years. Okay, next one. Okay, these are the two sheriffs that ended up at the Supreme Court on this case. The only time in history where sheriffs appeared at the U.S. Supreme Court and won. Do you think your sheriff ought to be a little bit curious as to what the case was about? And I'm going to share a little bit of that with you now. Next one. This is the Supreme Court. We have held, however, that state legislatures are not subject to federal direction. Did you hear that? This is the United States Supreme Court reinforcing the 10th Amendment. How many people in your government, here in your county or in your state, know that? You, governor, you, legislature, you, county officials and county commissioners, you, sheriff, are not subject to federal direction. Now, in the Brady bill, they were trying to even force us, as best they could, with threatening to arrest us. The sheriffs of America, they're going to arrest us if we don't go along and enforce the gun control laws known as the Brady bill. It's in there. I'm going to show it to you. And only 7 joined this lawsuit. 7. I filed in February of 1994. And then 6 other sheriffs joined the lawsuit. 6. So there's total 7. One of you mathematicians want to tell me what 7 out of 3,080 equals percentage-wise? I'll bet there's at least 3 zeros in there somewhere. Okay. Next one. And this is Judge John Roll. Now, the 2 judges that really influenced this decision the most, Judge Roll was assassinated or killed during the Congresswoman Gifford's assassination attempt in Tucson back in 2011. He was killed. But look what he says. Mack is thus forced to choose between keeping his oath or obeying the act, or obeying the law, subjecting himself to possible sanctions. Judge Roll was incensed by the arrogance of the federal government and Congress thinking that they could arrest sheriffs for failure to comply with their ridiculous gun control law. And you know that there was actually 5 Brady bills scheduled to be passed one year after the other until the entire Second Amendment was going to be gutted. Completely gutted and destroyed. Do you know if these handful of sheriffs hadn't stood up, the Second Amendment would have been gone, or we'd have been in war to stop. And we probably bought maybe 15 or 20 years of time on that particular issue, because they're going right back to legislating the very things that we stopped. It's amazing. This whole case was so amazing. Never heard much about it, did you? You know, these 7 sheriffs did more to stop and repeal gun control than any congressman ever in the history of our country. And it's because we did something. Okay, the only thing I wanted you to see there is the acronym CLEO. This is in the Brady Bill. They call the sheriffs in the Brady Bill CLEOs. It's official. Chief Law Enforcement Officer. Isn't that amazing? Sometimes the federal government actually gets it right. And this is official. It's right there. So anybody wants to know where it says anywhere in any of our books of jurisprudence, the Brady Bill itself calls the sheriffs the Chief Law Enforcement Officer. Ha! They're so right. Next one. Wait, go back one. Left arrow. Left arrow. Hit the left arrow for me. There we go. Can you go back one more? Okay, this is the threat of arrest. This is the threat. We skipped a little bit. Under a separate provision of the Gun Control Act, any person who knowingly violates the provisions of the Brady Bill, or the, what does it say, federal? Well, no, the GCA. GCA, you know what that is? It's the Gun Control Act of 1968, the Federal Gun Control Law. Amended by the Brady Bill. No, go back. We did, okay. Anybody who knowingly violates that shall be fined under this title, imprisoned for no more than 1 year, or fined or both, okay? So we're looking at a $10,000 fine or a year in jail for just not going along with them. Should scare you a little bit that only 7 of us objected to this. Yeah. There were a couple of sheriffs, one from Montana in particular, Sheriff Nixon. He says, I'm not filing any lawsuit. I'm just not going to do it. Tell them to come get me. That's what we all should have done, to be quite honest. You don't go to their courts and ask them permission to keep your oath of office. You don't ask anyone to keep your oath of office. You keep it. You do it. I think at the time this turned out to be the best thing, but I would never do it again. I'm not asking a federal court to keep my oath of office. Never. Never again. Okay? Next one. Next one. Okay? Next one. Okay, good. This is what Reagan said about our tax system. Said that it deserves a rebellion. Okay? Keep going. Oh, I love this. Except I have to turn this way because I don't have this memorized. Britain. This is right from Thomas Paine. Do you know what George Washington did to motivate and get his soldiers who were dying of dysentery, who had nothing to eat except fire cakes? Do you know what they were doing? They were running. They crossed the Delaware running from the Redcoats. They went into Valley Forge hoping that they could regroup and get some strength and get some money and some clothes and some boots. The middle of the winter is December, it's almost Christmas. And what does Washington do? He has his men read Thomas Paine's The American Crisis. It started, you've heard it all, we've all heard it. These are times that try men's souls. Well, later on, about 6 paragraphs later, this is what he says. Britain with an army, there you go. Britain with an army to enforce her tyranny. Does that sound familiar? We have 800,000 police officers in this country and thousands and thousands and thousands of federal agents, all saying that, well, I don't make the laws, I just have to enforce them. Where did you get that propaganda? Where did you get that brainwashing? Did the founding fathers tell you that? Did they show us that? Do we have to go along with tyranny, that we have to enforce tyranny? No, sir. We have to enforce our oath of office. We have to enforce, uphold, defend, and obey the United States Constitution and make sure everybody else in our county is doing the same. Follow the Constitution or get out of my county. Okay? Okay, that's Jennifer Long. That's the IRS agent that I was telling you about before. She even talks about going down here, literally ruining families' lives, businesses, all unnecessarily, and sometimes illegally. She's wrong about that sometimes, David. It was almost all the time. She was being soft on him right then. Next one. And look at this. And these are the people that we trust to come into our counties, an unlawful, unconstitutional Gestapo-like IRS, and now we have front page of USA Today. Front page, my friends. What was that? March of just 1 year ago, right now. 1 year ago, this is on the front page of USA Today. DEA, do you know what that is? Drug Enforcement Administration. Agents from the DEA, from the federal government, are down in Colombia. And what are they doing? They're having sex parties. And it went on, as the article says, for years. Drug Enforcement Administration agents posted in Colombia engaged in sex parties. Guess who supplied the prostitutes? The cartels. It says it right there. The very organizations, they are receiving taxpayer dollars to stop, to fight, and to thwart, are giving them bribes. Do you think that might be just a little bit illegal? How many of them went to jail? How many of them were even charged? How many of them were fined? How many of them went to prison? And then they go after the hands. Isn't that amazing? Absolutely astonishing that we allow this sort of thing to happen in our country. Why would any sheriff tell you they have to go along with federal agents? Oh my gosh. You know the Department of Education even has their own SWAT team now? Stockton, California, look at it on YouTube. Stockton, California. Department of Education does a SWAT team raid on a man and his family to go after his wife, who was in a separation situation. She didn't even live there anymore. And they go in there and ransack this guy's house for 6 hours, kicking in his door, ruining his door. Department of Education, you know what crime she committed? She didn't pay back her student loan on time. Yeah. And we let these guys go? We let these guys go? Amazing. Astonishing. Okay? How many of us who really care about law and order, which our sheriffs say we do, and they put us subject to these guys? No. Next one. More Thomas Paine. Okay? I love this. I love how he puts this. What signifies it to me? Do you know what he's saying? What difference does it make to me? Whether he who destroys my property and kills or threatens to kill me is a king or a common man, my countryman or not my countryman, whether it be done by an individual villain or an army of them. If we reason to the root of things, we shall find no difference. Neither can any just cause be assigned why we should punish in the one case and pardon on the other. And we do that all the time. And what we are going to do in the CSPOA, with you with us, is we're going to make this very clear to the federal government and make sure all sheriffs in this country are trained to know and understand that we're not going to do this anymore. Look how we've come full circle on this. How federal agents are just treated like red coat soldiers. That they can come in and plunder and do anything they want. And what signifies it to me, whether it's done by the king or the president or Congress or the FBI or whoever, what signifies it to me if I'm killed or threatened to be killed, and how it comes to be that it's punished on the one hand and forgiven or pardoned on the other. Totally astonishing. They have brought this on, and we have the solution. And if you get involved with it, and you get involved with us, I want you to hear that. We win. Don't think that you came here to be entertained. I didn't come here to entertain you. I came here to call you to action. I came here to get you involved. You must get involved. You can't sit there and say, yeah, good job. Okay? Next one. It is incontestable that the Constitution established a system of dual sovereignty. Although the states surrendered. Now, Scalia was not 100% correct, was he? He used the word surrendered. What is the word he should have used? It comes right out of the 10th Amendment. Come on, you 10th Amendment scholars. The word, I think she said it, delegated. We didn't surrender anything to the federal government when we formed the Constitution. We delegated. Who delegated? The states, the founding fathers, and we the people delegated certain discrete and enumerated powers to the federal government. Well, he kind of makes this clear, though. Look at that. However, whatever we delegated or whatever we surrendered, the states retained an inviolable sovereignty. Don't you wish your state knew it was inviolably sovereign? Pretty hard with Governor Brown sitting there. Huh? Okay. Next one. Residual state sovereignty was also implicit, of course, in the Constitution's conferral upon Congress of not all governmental powers. So what kind of powers do they have? This is where Scalia starts showing you the equation and the solution for liberty. Look at this. What kind of powers do they have? The only discrete enumerated. It's in bleeding heart red. Okay? But only discrete enumerated powers. And how do we maintain it that way? Okay, next he also says that. Which implication was rendered express. That means absolute. By what? The assertion of the 10th Amendment. And then he quotes the 10th Amendment. You see the word delegated? You do not see surrender. And so who enforces this? But we do, and the states. And ultimately, the last line in the sand is your sheriff, right here. Now, we're not going to get them all. We're going to try. But we're going to get that 700. We're going to get that 700 to 800 sheriffs. And we're well on our way. And I'm going to show you more evidence of this. Next one. The great innovation of this design is that our citizens would have two political capacities, one state and one federal. Now, get the next line. It's in gold, beam. Look at that. Each protected from incursion by the other. Did you see that? This is the United States Supreme Court talking not about the law or making a new law, but the existing law. He's simply reinforcing the 10th Amendment. He's not making anything up. He's enforcing the Constitution, which the Supreme Court is supposed to do, and they haven't done it in such a long time. This decision was 1997. That's been about the last time. But look at this. Each protected from incursion by the other. So who's supposed to protect you from federal incursions? State officials. I hear that a lot of the sheriffs in this country say that they have their power from the state. Okay, so you're a state official. Get to doing your job. And we will train you to do that. No more putting your boots upon your desk and saying, wow, I sure wish we didn't have that drug problem in our community. They can legalize all of them for all I care. And then we get back to the business of restoring our country. We use the drug war for excuses beyond anything I've ever seen. And this is a former undercover narcotics officer. Legalize them all. Next one. As Madison expressed it, the local or municipal authorities form distinct and independent portions of the supremacy. How many times have you been told the supremacy clause bestows all this power on the federal government? They have carte blanche because they have the supremacy clause. What does the supremacy clause say? Only if their actions are in pursuance of the Constitution. They haven't followed the Constitution in decades. So while their supremacy has been flushed down the toilet, they almost have none. None! And where is it supposed to be? Counties and states. Next one. This separation of the two spheres. What two spheres are we talking about? The federal and the state. The federal's about this big, and the state is huge. And yet it's been just the opposite. This separation of the two spheres is one of the Constitution's structural protections of liberty. So, I don't know. Victoria, should I just go on ahead and go on home now? We're not talking about anything important, are we? Just this little, what's it called? Structural protections of liberty. The 10th Amendment. And keeping these spheres separated and distinct and powerful and working is the answer to freedom today. The same as it was back then. Just as the separation and independence of the coordinate branches of government serve to prevent the accumulation of excessive power in any one branch, a healthy balance of power between the states and the federal government will reduce the risk of tyranny and abuse from either front. When you came to this meeting tonight, did you want to know how to reduce abuse and tyranny from either front? I just showed you the evidence. We must maintain a separation of powers between the federal government and the states. And he even goes further. Watch this, next one. Hence, a double security arises to the rights of the people. The different governments will control each other at the same time, be controlled by itself. Any question as to whether or not the federal government will control itself? Then we have to do it. And there's nothing subversive about this. It's lawful, it's constitutional, and endorsed by the Supreme Court. Scalia did not make law on this case. He took us through a history lesson, and he reinforced the 10th Amendment. That's our responsibility. Next one. The power of the federal government would be augmented immeasurably if it were able to impress it to its own service, and at no cost to itself, the police officers of the 50 states. They cannot do it, except if they bribe us, we go along willingly. Can we go along? Yes. And do we? Yes. Is it wrong? Yes. Is it illegal? Yes. Bribery is illegal no matter what you call it. Governmental bribery is still bribery. And isn't it funny? They take the money from us and then bribe us with it. Amazing. Amazing. Next one. Next one. There you go. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and play this. I gotta have some more sound on that. If you don't, we'll just pass it. Let's try and see if we can get some sound on this. And boy, William Wallace called that right. Slaves are made in such ways. And that's what we've been doing. Offer them the gold, offer them titles of nobility. Let them come to our national meetings in Washington, D.C. You know, we'll make these sheriffs and everybody feel so good about taking that money. When I taught child safety classes, stranger danger classes, I taught kids, why would somebody come up and just give you money? That doesn't happen, does it? Same thing with the federal government. Why would they just come up and offer you money? Scalia even talks about it in this decision. He says it's not the law, it's just conditions upon which grants are granted. So you meet their conditions, they give you the money. What a system. Next one. The federal government may not compel the states to enact or enforce a federal regulatory program. They can't commandeer the officers, we already saw that. We are not subject to their direction, we already saw that. And if we're not subject to their direction, that means Congress cannot tell your sheriff what to do. Nor can any of their latchkey alphabet bureaucrats. Is there any way a bureaucrat from Washington, D.C. could supersede the authority of your sheriff? How could that ever happen? The sheriff is the only elected law enforcement official in your county. Sometimes the county attorney says that it's actually him. So every time I hear a county attorney say, I'm the chief law enforcement officer of this county, I said, how's the traffic enforcement going in your office this month? How many tickets did you guys write? Well, I said, how's your investigations? I said, you work with law enforcement, and you are a prosecutor, but you're not the chief law enforcement officer. But if they want to believe that, let them. Sheriff, just keep doing what you're doing. Okay? Next one. Okay? But the Constitution protects us. This is my favorite quote from the entire decision. But the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions. It divides power among sovereigns and among branches of government precisely so that we may resist the temptation to concentrate power in one location as an expedient solution to the crisis of the day. End quote. The crisis of the day. Have you heard that one before? This is Scalia talking. 1997. Making sure that we avoid the temptation to concentrate power in one location, to stop the crisis of the day, the crisis that they invent, that they fabricate, and then come and tell us, we gotta get a $19 trillion debt, or we're gonna have terrorists all over the place. And they are now letting terrorists into our country at such an alarming rate that it would boggle the mind. And why would they be allowing that to occur? They tell us that we have a war on terror, and yet they will not secure our borders. Doesn't make sense, does it? It is now easier for a terrorist to enter America than it is for you and me to get on an airplane. And that's all because of your federal government. And it's Democrats and Republicans. Absolutely. Next one. This is the order of the court in the case. Start and go. The federal government may neither issue directives requiring the states to address particular problems, nor command the state's officers or those of their political subdivisions. What are the political subdivisions? Counties and cities. To administer or enforce a federal regulatory program. Next one. It matters not whether policy making is involved, and no case-by-case weighing of the burdens or benefits is necessary. Such commands are fundamentally incompatible with our constitutional system of dual sovereignty. And it is dual sovereignty, but the federal government has sold away any sovereignty that they have. They have none. They've given it all over to the United Nations. Another real problem that we have, Agenda 21, all of that. We recognize all of that. Okay? Next one. Next one. That's the last quote I already did. Okay? This is Judge Roll when I was on the stand. Now, just so you know the process here, at the district court level is the only time we as sheriffs testified. Okay? That was the only hearing. When we went to the circuit court and ours was in San Francisco, and yes, we got overturned. We won. Judge Roll, he sided with me on every pre-trial motion. Every single one. Because he was so incensed with the federal government on this whole bill. And then I'm taking the stand, and I go up on the stand, and I thought the attorney for the federal government was doing an excellent job. And she was really backing me into a corner, and I'm going, oh man, she's going to nail me on this. And she stops, and she follows orders from Janet Reno. And she starts testifying and giving evidence, literally giving evidence to the judge, directly to the judge. She starts testifying. I'm on the stand. And I'm going, I didn't say a word, but I'm looking over the judge, and I'm looking over my attorney, and I'm going, as best I could with eye motion, asking him, why aren't you objecting? Go after this girl. And he was smart enough to let her hang herself with her own rope. And finally, she goes, well, Your Honor, in the first 4 months of the implementation of the Prineville background checks, we've already denied 250,000 felons from gaining access to guns in this country. And I'm going, what a crock of lies. 250,000 felons on the streets of America are going into gun shops in 4 months, trying to buy a gun where they have to sign a form saying they're not wanted. And they look them up and find out that they are, turn them over to the sheriff. Not one arrest on any of those. Not one. 250,000 felons. It was all a pack of lies, but they don't care because they know where they have to do their statistical analysis. And Judge Roll came back right on. He says, Counselor, do not try to pretend, and there it is, that your statistical analysis somehow equates to constitutionality. This is the type of man we lost that day. I believe that he would have made the Supreme Court someday had he lived. He was by far one of the most powerful district court judges in America. Very constitutional, very pro-Second Amendment. And he's killed by an armed perpetrator in Tucson. Next one. Boy, I hope, give me some sound on this somehow. Go ahead and play it. Okay, his face right here, go ahead and stop it. Okay, we all know the story, but I want to play it out a little bit differently. I want to play it like this call when the bus driver gets off. Of course, there were no cell phones in 1955, but this is Montgomery, Alabama, 1955, December 1st. You heard the Christmas music playing in the background. Rosa Parks was arrested. Some people say, oh, that's okay, she was a communist. I don't care what she was. She was an American citizen. She could sit wherever she wants on that bus. I don't care. She wanted to drive the bus. Doesn't matter. She's an American citizen. She's literally arrested, handcuffed, taken into a jail cell, booked in, photographed, and fingerprinted, just like any other common street criminal, for not giving her seat to a white man. Edmund Burke, a famous legislator from England, said that the enforcement of stupid laws is the essence of tyranny. And we have an army, according to Thomas Paine, an army enforcing the king's tyranny. We have the same going on today, and they actually attach nobility to doing that. We might not like the law, but we have to do this. We have to do our duty. So we're going to haul Rosa Parks off to jail for not giving her seat to a white man? And they call me crazy? Astonishing. Let me play this out. This call comes into dispatch, and the sheriff happens to be in the office and overhears the call. And he tells dispatch, I'll take that. And he grabs Deputy Smith, and they go to the scene. And remember, I'm making this up. but it's what should have happened. And the sheriff gets out of his car, walks onto the bus, and they waited there. People are really getting kind of anxious about getting home. It's about 7:30 at night, and Deputy Smith behind the sheriff walks up to Rosa Parks, and he says, "Ma'am, just what seems to be the problem here?" And she looks up at him, takes a big gulp. She says, "Why can't we just be left alone?" Anybody else feel like that? Why can't we just be left alone? And the bus driver goes, "Will you listen to that?" And the sheriff goes, "You know what? You're right, Mrs. Parks." And he sits down next to her, and she doesn't know what's going on. And he reaches over and shakes her hand, and he says, "Mrs. Parks, what you did tonight took a lot of courage, and I really admire you for it. And it would be an honor for my deputy and me to escort you home safely." And she's still not sure what's going on, but she says that would be nice. Because she knows that she could really be in serious trouble, including getting lynched for doing what she did. And so the deputy and the sheriff walk her home. And they come up to the front porch, and Mr. Parks sees them, and he runs out the front door, and he goes, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And the sheriff goes, "It's okay. Rosa refused to give her seat to a white man tonight." And the husband gets mad at her. "I told you not to do that. What are you doing? What's the matter with you?" And the sheriff had to rebuke him a little bit. Said, "She did the right thing. She's okay. We're going to make sure you're okay. Because we're going to give you extra patrol all night long tonight." But he says, "Mr. Parks, let me ask you something. Do you have a gun in the home?" He says, "Of course I do. 12 gauge. And the sheriff goes, "Is it loaded?" And Mr. Parks goes, "Doesn't do you any good if it's not." And he said, "Good. I'm glad." He says, "Keep it handy. And if you have to use it tonight, let your conscience be your guide, but we're going to be hanging close. We won't be able to be here every second, but we're going to be close, and we will come by often. And the shift tomorrow will do the same. The next few days, we're going to do the same thing." My dear friends, that is a constitutional sheriff. And this is exactly what we expect today. A sheriff who knows the difference between enforcement of stupid laws, of hate and prejudice and tyranny, who knows when to put a stupid law in the trash can and enforce the laws of equality and decency and God's law. And that comes first. And there is no nobility in taking Rosa Parks to jail. And there's no nobility in doing it today either. And we need to stand firm in defending the Rosa Parks today. Rosa Parks the gun owner, Rosa Parks the tax protester, Rosa Parks the rancher, or the citizen who simply wants to be left alone. Next one. Badge versus badge. I didn't make this up either, but we sure promote it big time. This is an article out of Rainy Magazine in 2003. You can check their website. You can find the article for yourself. But I took 3 clips out of it. We're going to see those right now. First one. Right here. There you go. Sheriff Gary Amon from Obi County made it clear that he didn't want BLM help in local law enforcement and warned that he expected to be notified of any federal investigation or enforcement action, including impoundment of cattle the feds consider to be trespassing on U.S. property. And he said, to hell with that. And he told them flat out. And he wasn't alone. Look at the next one. Sheriff Gary Penrod from San Bernardino, California. Well, he's not the sheriff now, I guarantee you. There's been 2 since then, I believe. Yeah, there's been 2. Sheriff flips after him, and then, I don't know. But it's a typical Californian who doesn't think you have to do anything. Sheriff Penrod said, "This isn't going to happen in my county anymore." Look what he said. Sheriff, simply revoke local law enforcement authority from the federal government across all 20,000 square miles of his county and advise them to consult him first before taking any action on private property. Wow. I would say that if a California sheriff can do it, Oregon sheriff can do it. Okay, next one. And of course, Sheriff Ken Jones from Eureka County, Nevada, what they really want is to extend federal authority over all law enforcement in the United States, whether local people agree with that or not. Says Jones, well, it's not in this county. That's all we're after. That's all we're after. Next one. Badge versus the badge. I told you at the beginning, it's going to come down to that. If your sheriffs stand firm, we will win this. And they stand firm when you're there next to them. If we get them educated, we get them trained, and they get your support, and they hear from you, remember, 10 to 12 times, and they're going to say, everybody in the county is after me on this. You must get involved in this process. Next one. When we have lived under a pernicious power long enough, no matter how oppressive, we grow so accustomed to the yoke that its removal seems striking, even wrong. You know, that's how a lot of people will say, getting rid of the IRS or arresting IRS agents. How would we pay for all our government? Yeah, how could we pay for all that corruption? Yeah. It's ridiculous. And you'll see these little slaves running around saying that we need to keep the IRS the way it is. Wow. Amazing. Next one. When asked if he considered himself a constitutional sheriff, San Juan County, Utah Sheriff Rick Eldridge replied, I do. I thought every sheriff was supposed to be a constitutional sheriff. That's our job. I'm telling you, this is taking hold. The problem is, we have never been funded. We've done absolute tremendous miracles with the little we have. And now we're starting a push to make us the next NRA in America. Not because we want to be a big organization, because we want an army with us, a peaceful, effective army with us, that will stand with us in creating constitutional sheriffs and a defense for you and a defense for our country and a restoration of our Constitution. I don't see any other way. I have not seen any other way. I have been fighting and dedicating my life to this. I have sworn with a firm reliance in providence, as we mutually pledge to each other our lives and fortunes and sacred honor, and to emulate the founders. And I'm asking you tonight to emulate the founders and join with us in this holy cause, so that we can still keep this peaceful, so that we can make this effective, and so that the army of sheriffs who are out to set other men free will be there, and it's automatic. And they know Goliath, and they recognize Goliath for who he is, and they stand against Goliath, and you stand with them. And we don't have a lot of time. And we need your financial support. We need you to join CSPOA tonight. I'm asking everybody here. I'm asking you to join. There's a little card out there, and you can join. And I'm asking you to join us in this holy cause of liberty. And let me tell you right now. Let me tell you right now. If you can't afford it, sign it anyway. And we'll have somebody else. I know we'll have somebody else and other donations coming in to cover your $50 membership. And with that, you get the best book in the country on the sheriff, free. That's yours. And then the follow-up, the sequel to that, you get for 33% off. Okay? We want you to have these tools of liberty in your hand. We want you to be part of this restoration. Do you really think that we can make this happen without you? We, the people, has to be involved in this process. If you join with us, every single one who joined with us makes us that much more powerful. I'm telling you, I don't see any other way. If you're waiting for me to pay for all this, I don't have it. I've been a cop and a sheriff, and I have no retirement. Hell, I take that back. I just started my Social Security last year. I'm telling you, man, I think I'm going to take my wife to Hawaii on that every other month. All $1,200 of it. Okay? We've dedicated our life to this. And I'm asking you to do the same. I'm not asking you, believe me, I'm not asking you for your fortune. I'm just asking for you to do what you can. If you can do more, do more. If you can't do the 50, sign the card, turn it in tonight. I have to tell you, that I've had something happen to me when I've been up here tonight. And a couple of times, I've seen my mother in the audience. And she died in 2011. And I wasn't feeling very good, I guess because of the flights and everything that's going on, and the pressure that I felt, the stress that I've been under. And I said a special prayer that something would help me tonight. And I'll be darned if it wasn't the face of my mother. And a couple of times if you saw me pause, that's because I was looking at her. And I apologize for this, but I want you to know this is God's work. And His angels are here helping us. Certainly mine has been here tonight. And I pray that each of you will join us in this work. And I dedicate this to each of you. And I dedicate it to your children, because I know if it's dedicated to your children, it's dedicated to mine. And I can honestly say, my 12 grandchildren are the bulk of this. But I can honestly say, too, regarding my mother, I can say the same thing as Abraham Lincoln said. Everything I am and hope to be, I owe to my angel mother. And another thing that Abraham Lincoln said that I totally believe with all my heart is America will never be destroyed by an outside enemy. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. My dear friends, join us in keeping America from getting destroyed from within. The greatest threat to America is not ISIS. The greatest threat to America is our own federal government and the United Nations. Now, it becomes our duty and our responsibility to make sure that does not happen. I'm going to ask you one more time. Join us in this holy cause. I cannot do it alone. I'll do it every day, and I'll do it every waking moment, and my wife does it with me, and we're expanding, and we have some people in Texas who are helping us expand. And oh, and by the way, The Supreme Court case cost $400,000. How about we raise that tonight and put it back in the coffers? No. The NRA paid for most of it, and that was another miracle. I had no idea how I was going to pay for this lawsuit. I had no lawyer. I had no backup. The county was totally against me. I had nowhere to go. And my undersheriff walks in the room while I'm contemplating all this, and he said something about the NRA. I said, Mike, you're a member of the NRA? He goes, yeah, like member. I was never a member. And I go, do they have like a toll-free number you could call and get advice? And he goes, yeah. And he gave me the card, the toll-free number, and I called it. And I thought, what a waste of time. I'm looking at all this, getting passed around, like calling Washington, D.C. Finally, I end up in the office of Richard Gardner, an attorney for the NRA. And I told him who I was and what I wanted to do. And he said this, and this next line changed my life forever. He said, Sheriff, we've already been preparing the paperwork on this case, and we've been praying that you would call. And I said, hallelujah. And he says, we've got the money already. He says, we've got all of it planned out. We've got members of the NRA that are going to fund this. And he says, all we need is you to sign the dotted line. And I said, I'll be there tomorrow. And he says, you don't have to. We have an office in Phoenix. And I said, okay. And I said, I thought this was going to totally offend them. And I said, I have to tell you though, I don't want this to be the NRA case. I want it to be my case. It has to be my case. Me doing something what I promised my people I would do. He said, I would like my own lawyer. And he goes, that's fine, we'll work with your lawyer. And I said, great. Do you know one out here in Arizona that knows and understands the Second Amendment, the Constitution? He said, yeah, of course. His name's Dave Hardy. He lives in Tucson, and he used to work for us. I said, great. So I called Hardy and retained him as my personal lawyer on this. And on February 28, 1994, the NRA lawyers and my lawyer filed in federal district court in Tucson, Arizona, Mack versus U.S. And then a few weeks later, they did the same in Ravalli County, Montana, with Sheriff Prince. And then one joined from Texas, one from Texas, out of 254 sheriffs, one. And then, in a state sovereignty gun rights case, we get one sheriff out of that state. And then one from Mississippi, one from Louisiana, one from Vermont, one from Wyoming, and then Prince from Montana, and myself from Arizona. So, my dear friends, we've seen the power of one. Now just imagine that we have hundreds of sheriffs doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I'll leave you with one final story. Sheriff Brad Rogers from Elkhart County, Indiana, and you'll see the story in here. And you'll see other stories about other sheriffs, Sheriff Palmer included. Sheriff Rogers called me about 3.5 years ago, and he said, the FDA just threatened to arrest me. And I said, I can't think of a better guy. I said, what'd you do good now? And he said, there's an Amish farmer in my county who refuses to pasteurize his milk. And I said, that's all of them. He goes, yeah, that's all of them. They don't believe it. They won't use the technology. They won't use electricity to burn and destroy their milk. And I said, well, what's that got to do with you getting arrested by the FDA? He said, well, they went after this guy on spot inspections, and he passed all of them. And you know how passive they are. They just keep inviting him back in. They said, well, we're coming back. And he goes, okay. Finally, even this Amish farmer got sick and tired of the FDA. You know that's pretty bad. And so the Amish farmer called the sheriff and said, what the FDA was doing, Brad didn't even know, Sheriff Rogers didn't even know. He says, I'll be right out. He saw the paperwork they had left and what they were doing. So Sheriff Rogers calls the FDA. He says, if you come back into my county without duly signed warrants, probable cause, and due process, I'll arrest you for trespassing. Well, that sounds good, doesn't it? But they told him, if you interfere, you'll be obstructing justice, and we will charge you with a felony. Ah, perfect. Now Brad's interested. And he said, Mac, if you'll help me write a letter to the FDA responding to their threat to arrest me, then I'm going to send that on, and then if they arrest me, they arrest me. And my wife will call you when that happens. I said, okay. He says, I'm not intimidated, not one bit. I said, let's do the letter. If any of you would like a copy of that letter, email me, and I'll get it to you. Okay, I still have it on my computer. It's an amazing letter. And 3 days after he sent them that letter, they get, the Amish farmer gets a certified letter telling him that everything against him had been dropped. Everything. And this was going to go before a grand jury in Detroit. From Elkhart County, Indiana to Detroit for a grand jury investigation against this man. All of it was stopped, and the FDA hasn't been back in 3 years. Now, Brad admits they might come back sometime, but he's also told us publicly that he hopes he's the first sheriff in the country to arrest an IRS agent. He wants to grab him. Join us in that, and we have time for a couple of questions? Okay. I'm going to trust you guys on this, okay? Remember, ask me a question.
How do you feel about the Constitution of States?
Constitutional states are pretty good, actually. Most of the states' constitutions are pretty solid, but they do not supersede the original Bill of Rights. They can't. But if you look at gun control, no state constitution allows it. In fact, some of them, most of them are even stronger. And the first state in the Union, which was? First state. Delaware, thank you. Did anybody say Delaware? I did. Okay? Look at their state constitution, how solid it is on the right to keep and bear arms. And it also says the sheriff is the conservator of the peace for the county, mandated by the Constitution. Now, in that state, they have destroyed the office of sheriff. And Sheriff Jeff Christopher from Sussex County, Delaware, was fighting it all the way. And the state Supreme Court sided with the state, which was Joe Biden, and since then he's passed away. Yes. Oh yes, okay, good, yeah. I gotta repeat the question. So his question was, what about state constitutions? I think I made it a little bit.
Constitution of States.
Of state, oh, no, you're talking about CONCON.
Yes. I think it's
An Article 5 convention.
Article 5.
Oh, okay. I'm dead set against it. Okay? And I admit it's constitutional. But so is using the Second Amendment and keeping the bearing arms. And I'm not telling anybody to start shooting. Okay? And I don't believe that it will work, and I don't think it can work. And you just have to boil it down to one thing. Who is going to choose the delegates to the state convention? Okay? It's going to be your governor. If you trust her to pick the right delegates, then go for it. But you want me to tell you the truth? It's not going to be you, it's not going to be you, and it's not going to be Sheriff Palmer. Okay? It's not going to be anybody. It's going to be mainstream politicians, and if you trust them with the Bill of Rights, let's have it. Okay? I don't trust it at this time. Is it a lawful and constitutional process that the Founding Fathers supported? Of course, they put it in there. I wouldn't trust it right now. No way. And it would take, how long would it take to get all 37 states to agree to have it? You're talking years. CSPOA is not going to wait years to change this. And you know what? If you get constitutional sheriffs, it'll make that convention irrelevant. Because we'll restore liberty right here. Okay? One other one is over here, and then Maggie. Yeah.
On January 2nd of this year, if you were the Harney County Sheriff, how would that have ended up out there at the Mount Here Refuge? And did our brave patriots out there do anything wrong?
They didn't do it. Ammon called me when he was in there. Okay? And I was in Burns that very day. I don't know how many of you know that. Okay? And this is a little bit what I was talking about. And I rebuked Ammon. And Ammon is a good man. Don't ever let anybody say that he's not.
I know he is.
Ammon is a good man. And I love Ammon Bundy. He's a good friend of mine. And I live in an area in Arizona and work in an area in Arizona where he used to live and have his kids go to school. Every single person there, every teacher that knew him, and every person in their church and everybody else said the same thing. They love Adam Bundy, one of the greatest people they've ever met. I totally disagree with the tactic. And this goes back again. If you're going to do something like that, if you're going to commit civil disobedience, and afterwards you want constitutional sheriffs to put their lives on the line for you, you had better involve them in the process beforehand. Okay? Make them a part of it. Okay? Now I know Ammon went to talk to Sheriff Ward, but his talks with them, and he got me involved in those talks too, and I talked to Sheriff Ward. And Sheriff Ward is not a constitutional sheriff. I hope that isn't a big surprise to you. And I gave Sheriff Ward lots of different ways he could get out of this and protect the Hammonds. The Hammonds deserve that protection. Okay? And we're just releasing a press release about that. And I've been to the Hammonds' home, and I talked to Susie and their son Rusty. Was it Rusty? No, Stephen's in jail. Rusty. I think it was Rusty. Yeah, big guy. And it actually happened coincidentally to be Dwight and Susie's 51st? Was it 51st wedding anniversary? And some family member sent her flowers while we were there, and she told us that it was their anniversary. And Dwight had just turned 75. And so this is almost, I mean, I certainly hope I live past 80, but I don't think it's going to be a lot of worthwhile living after 80 that much, you know. I've already had heart problems, you know. And so is he, and he's not been that healthy. This is almost a death sentence for him. But the problem is, he already served his time. And you know this? He paid a $400,000 fine. $400,000. Well, they must be millionaires, huh? Do you know who raised it for him? All the other ranchers and neighbors in the community, so that they could stay out of trouble from the FBI and the federal government. Family and friends and the community and fellow ranchers raised that $400,000 for him. I'm sure the Hammonds paid something. This is a good family, this is good people, and totally against double jeopardy laws. But even more than that, $400,000 fine violates the 8th Amendment, excessive fines and bail. I mean, there were so many different crimes committed here. And so I told Sheriff Ward, I said, look, just tell the federal government you've arrested Dwight and Steve. Just arrest them. And go to the prosecutor and tell them you've got them under arrest. Make up some charge. I don't care. Tell them they violated gun laws, whatever. Go ahead, arrest them. And then just keep postponing it indefinitely. And you tell the feds, they're under my custody and we're waiting to take these people to trial. Sorry, you know how these things can go. You know? And the process is slow and hard. But I'm telling you, this was a difficult position to put the sheriffs in. And I'm telling you, this whole thing has not helped Sheriff Palmer at all. Has not. And Sheriff Palmer has shared some of his personal feelings about all this with me. And like I said, he's one of our best, and he was our first constitutional sheriff in this country. And so, if this had been in his county, and they hadn't involved Sheriff Palmer, they got him involved after the fact somewhat. But if this had been in his county and they hadn't contacted him, I would not be on the occupier side whatsoever. And so, if we're going to do these things, as I said before, we must coordinate with our sheriffs, not go in and say, now save me. Now, you risked your life and career for me when I had nothing to do with it in the first place. I'm telling you right now, that's not how the constitutional sheriff works. And I started this, and I have the right to say that. Yes, sir.
What is a group of people here in Central Oregon do you think the best thing we could do is for William Palmer?
Well, right now he's taking so much heat that he can't even see straight.
Agreed.
And so, okay, what can we do for Sheriff Palmer? Okay, and I'm going to tell you right now, and I don't mean to be beating the CSPOA horn. Join the CSPOA. And we are raising money for him. And we were gonna do a big rally, and the rally was gonna cost like $20,000 because we were gonna bring Sheriff Rogers, and Sheriff Clark, and Sheriff Finch, and Sheriff Christopher, and a few sheriffs from Utah, and a couple from Idaho, and we were gonna pay for all that. And we thought we need to go there and have this rally. And I had a rally there for Sheriff Palmer before. And it was fantastic. I thought, well, we'll come and have all these constitutional sheriffs speak at a rally. Sheriff Palmer said, I'm asking you not to do that at this time. I said, Sheriff, we're here to help you and work with you and help you in any way. And he was still cussing some of the things that happened during that time. And somebody put him on the line, and it wasn't by his own choice. Right? And did he respect some of these guys? Yeah, absolutely. He talked to them. And so, yeah. I will tell you right now, we will keep you informed on all the efforts to help Sheriff Palmer. But all the other sheriffs too. And I'll tell you what, if Sheriff Rogers in Indiana gets in some trouble, we might be calling you to go out there with us too. But we will let you know, and we will keep this organized. And so we are looking for state and county representatives in the CSPOA. And we want you to contact us, and we want you to be involved in this process. We need a rep in every county in this country. Some places where the big counties are, we need more. And we need state reps, and we have one in Pennsylvania, we have one in Florida, we have one in Utah, we have one in Arizona, and a few other places, maybe a couple in Texas. We need 3,000 of those. And so, yeah, we need to cover all counties. We might even start covering cities. But we need your involvement in this, and we're going to make this thing happen. We're going to make it bigger, better, faster right now. And it really depends on, you can look at your hands and say, it depends on me. The solution is in my hands. How much am I going to get involved? It's up to you. Can you imagine that freedom gets restored by how much you're involved? Working together with us. I've had some militia groups call me recently just, saying, well, we want you to come out here with us, and we're going to do this even bigger and better and worse this next time, and we're going to make it happen. I said, stand down and work with us, and don't be starting more trouble. Stand down. I said, are you listening? I said, we want to do this too, but we want it smart. And what does the Bible say? Harmless as doves, wise as serpents. And that's the approach we need to take, and we need to do that together. And we want you involved. And we want your emotion and your fire and your desire. And we want that control within. Wise as serpents, harmless as doves. Do not provoke violence. And do things that are smart and intelligent and that we've all agreed on. Okay? Just involve your sheriff. Open up the lines of communication. And we do this together. Not march in and then say, okay, come save me. Okay? Maggie.
We've come a long way, Richard, since the Founding Day Fathers Picnic 14 years ago in Reading. My question I have for you is, in my visits up to the jail, visiting with Ryan and Buddha and Jason Patrick and Sean Anderson, the one thing I think that they would want me to ask you, because they are actually allowed to see some of the news, their question is, there is a person who's a representative down, let me get this right, Kanab, Utah, where the Boys Memorial Service was, who we just found is, I guess he's a Republican, he's a representative there in that state, and he is now trying to propose a bill to try to take away some of the sheriff's power. I understand he was a BLM employee at one time.
Now, if he was, it was very brief, and this is one of the best reps in all of Utah. And his son is a sheriff, and all the sheriffs are backing him. We're in the middle of it, we're on top of it. It doesn't, it's an interpretation problem. We've been going over and over it. We've been talking with, his name is Mike Noel. His son is the best constitutional sheriff in all of Utah. Beaver County, Utah, Cameron Noel. So this, are we on top of it? This is what we do full time. And this is that's why we need you. And we're glad that you're involved in it, and we're glad that you know about this. But it's a law, it's a new legislative law that might go into effect in 3 years. And it creates an overseer of public land from Utah. And they're trying to push the feds out of the way, and Utah has already done it. Mike Noel supported this, and he supports constitutional sheriffs big time. Totally big time. He's been working with us on this. So we have been after him a little bit to get some of the wording changed just so it cannot be misinterpreted. But right now the language does not say that it supersedes the sheriff. All we want to do is add that he would be required to coordinate with the sheriff. And that would be a simple thing. And all the sheriffs are going to probably make that happen anyway. The 28 of the 29 sheriffs there are pretty solid. In fact, you want to move to the state that has the best and most constitutional sheriff, that would be Utah. Okay? Yes.
Did Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King consult with their sheriff before they participated in civil disobedience? And if they didn't, the sheriff still has the duty to protect them against recourse for disobeying stupid and unconstitutional laws.
You're right, and it would have been a lot better for the sheriff if he had, and it would have been a lot better for her. And I'm still saying what's best. And you'll notice what happened to Rosa Parks. You know, I was saying what should have happened, and I still say that. And we can learn from that mistake. She made a mistake. She should have told the sheriff, but she was talking to NAACP lawyers, and they all devised all that, and they never even once thought about going to the sheriff, which they should have done. But maybe at the time they knew their sheriff's not going to happen. In fact, the question was, Rosa Parks, the sheriff should have helped her whether he talked to her or not, or whether she talked to him or not. Very true. But the thing of it was, she would have been a lot better off had she talked to the sheriff. Had somebody gone to the sheriff and say, you know what, we got a lot of votes here, and we want you to protect us when we don't sit at the back of the bus. And we want you on the bus, and we will keep this peaceful, and we will vote for you, and we will support you. Maybe they could have got somewhere with that. But we're smart enough to make sure that we don't make that mistake again. And we use Rosa Parks. We use her story. It's very historical. It's powerful. We love it. You know? And, and Victoria, we probably need to talk a little bit afterwards, because I don't know if you were there when I talked to Ammon or not. But Ammon, when he talked to me, we had a very stirring conversation. And, but I told him I loved him. And I do. I totally disagree with what he did.
He started a movement, though.
I don't know if he did or not.
He did for me.
Okay? Well, I'm not saying it hasn't brought some good positive attention somewhere, but I believe we can get that attention through working together a little bit better. And yeah, and I think it brought some real good attention to the Hammond supply too.
Yeah.
You know. But they're not out, and that's what we want. Yes.
Will some of this donation go to help people like the Bundys and all those people who are in jail, who were really trying to help all of us citizens?
Yes, and we've been already spread so thin that we've been really having to take care of our donations. Ammon is a life member of the CSPOA. And I hope we raise enough to where I can send him back his life membership. And you can see on the form, that's several $100s. In fact, I'll tell you exactly what it was. It was $700. I don't have it right now, but I hope to get it. And I've already told people in our organization that I want to send that back to him to help him. So yes. Go ahead. Oh, did you ever hear the question? No. Her question was, is some of this money going to go to Bundy's and other people like that? And like I said, Ammon is a life member of the CSPOA. He totally supports this. If they had had a constitutional sheriff in Bunkerville, it would have been an amazing situation. As it was, most of you might not know, but in this book, a deputy sheriff by the name of Tom Roberts interposed at the very most crucial, intense moment when the shooting was just getting ready to start and the order to kill the protesters had been announced. And Deputy Tom Roberts, by himself, stood in the way and stopped it. A powerful one. And he won't even talk to us. He doesn't want to even get, but it was a good man who's not a constitutional deputy or constitutional sheriff or It's one of the worst departments in the country. He was a good person doing the right thing at the right time. And it saved a lot of lives. So, to answer your question, yes, I intend to send that back to him. Do we really need the money? Yes. But I know he and his wife Lisa need it really bad right now. That's why. And like I said, he's a friend of mine. I have no idea who's first over here.
Down here.
Okay, right down here.
Do you actually have any idea on how many Oregon sheriffs are members of the CSPOA?
Yes. Oregon sheriffs who are members and supporters of ours. We've had about 5 who have attended our training. Okay?
The reason I ask is, I'm Bob Hudson, retired Wheeler County Sheriff.
Well, good for you, Sheriff.
I keep my ears to the ground, but I have not heard
Yeah.
a lot of them throwing their hands or throwing their hands.
Well, one of them's retired, and that was Sheriff of Lincoln County, and that was Tim Mueller. Okay? But those sheriffs who wrote those letters to Tim Mueller was one of the first ones in the country. And he had been to our training, and Tim and I were friends, and we actually hope to have Tim working with us in the future. And so, yes, we have a lot of work to do here in Oregon, obviously. Okay? And we've got to wrap this up, and I'm going to go with 2 more questions, and I saw this lady right here.
Let's see if I can get this worded out right. Sheriff Ward out of Harney County. If he had not, let's try this again. If he had gone against BLM and told them, no, you cannot take the Hammond, get involved with the Hammond.
Right. Which he should have done. And we were ready to back him up on that.
And he did it, is there any way that somebody could charge him with, like a charge of treason or something like that?
Harboring a fugitive? But they're not a fugitive. If he had taken a legal action against them, he could have protected himself from that, just as I suggested to him. He wouldn't listen.
He used to be a BLM employee also.
So, actually, it was a guy with a similar name. We checked on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it wasn't him.
Okay.
Because I know he can't be, for one, he was not elected into that position.
No, he wasn't. He was
And
appointed.
2, if I'm correct, the state of Oregon doesn't have an impeachment clause. So we can't toss him out of office. What could Harney County do to get rid of him?
Well, we've already endorsed the new guy running against him, and that's Johnson. And I met with him, and he's ready to roll. Okay? So, that's also what we do. That is what we do, okay? Last one.
As you know, God gave us this country, and speaking of the house of David and the man who holds the keys, who said, sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body hast thou prepared me, who died for our sins, and restored the bread
What's your question?
of the grave. Well, the sacrifices have been back. They were gone for 2,000 years, around the same time the temple was destroyed. They've been back since July 31st, 2009. The last 2 years, Israel, the house of Israel, has tried to scale the temple and sacrifice on top. This year, during Passover, they're going to try to do the same thing. In Matthew 24, 15.
Okay, you're giving me a Sunday school lesson. I want a question.
This is it right here.
Okay.
When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whosoever readeth, let him understand. Now, is this not something that can bring all Christians together? It states Jesus told us to stand. And all other moral people as well. We can be the people that lead that.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I hope we are. We should. How many Christians do we have in this country, and yet what have we allowed to happen in this country? I mean, look at abortion. And that we even discuss such a heinous thing as partial birth abortion. And that we have a country based on life, and we don't protect it at its earliest and most innocent state. And I'm astonished that we have this. You know, this is an amazing dichotomy of what you bring up right there. Yeah. Okay, last one, right back here. Yes.
Yes, my name is Paul Renner, and my question is this. It seems to me...
And you're running for?
Congratulations.
job.
And also served in my book here, representing
Okay?
Anyway, here's something, it seems that the sheriffs here in the state of Oregon are required to get a certificate from the state for them to be a sheriff or their authority.
No, I don't think it's to be a sheriff, it's to be a peace officer.
Well, the problem is, it seems that may actually hobble them in the performance of the sheriff duties.
Well, I've heard that excuse, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't buy it at all.
Well, see, that's what I'm at.
And that's another really stretch of an excuse. And we don't support that excuse. We have other state sheriffs in some states that the legislature established the office, and they say, hey, they can get rid of me anytime they want. Let me see any state that tries to get rid of the sheriff, especially in the West. This is not going to happen out here. I admit there is an attack on the sheriff, and there's a good reason there's an attack on the office of sheriff. Because the feds and the others know they cannot control this guy, and that certificate you're talking about is one of the little pieces of control that they try to establish over sheriffs. So do they have to get that certificate? It's not to be sheriff, it's to be a certified peace officer, and they require that in about 50% of the sheriffs and states in this country, that you have to be a certified peace officer. In Arizona, anybody registered to vote 18 years or older can run for sheriff. I even had an 18-year-old run against me once. Okay? So that's what we also want to push, and that's where, again, you come in. But this movement will not stop because of that. Okay? And we will train those sheriffs that your oath of office is 10 times more important than that silly certificate. Okay? Thank you. Appreciate your running. Okay? My dear friends, let me close real quickly. I will just simply tell you this. Back in 1983, when I was a rookie cop, I was converted to the Constitution. Ever since then, my life changed. I quit a job in Utah, moved home to Arizona, ran for sheriff, sued the federal government, lost my job over it, became a national activist, and became a crusader for freedom and liberty, and that's what's brought me to you. And when I was at that seminar, a stout, powerful, homely man by the name of Dr. W. Cleon Scalza taught this class to 250 cops, 250 cops called the Constitution for Law Enforcement Officers. And during that 2-day seminar, I was converted, heart and soul, to the Constitution. And during that time, I took another oath, and I promised myself that I would never be on the wrong side again. And that led me to running for sheriff 5 years later in a different state. But where my wife and I were both from, in the community where my dad was an FBI agent, and where I had gone to school and lived most of my younger years. But this is what happened. I had an epiphany occur during this time, and he gets up, this frail man, with the power of God, gets up, and has all 250 of us cops get up, and he teaches us a little kindergarten exercise. And I leave it with you tonight as my dedication to you, as my dedication to Justice Scalia and to Judge John Rowe, who changed my life, who stood for what's right. And I dedicate it to your children and your grandchildren and my children and my grandchildren. And my first grandchild was a girl. She was born on the 4th of July. 9 years ago, it would be 10 years ago this July. And her name is Liberty. And I call her my little Libby. And I always tell her, everybody needs a little liberty. And we love you. And in her name, and in the name of all that's holy, I share with you that little kindergarten exercise as the way I will close today. And it goes like this. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. And that's the eagle. Long may she be free.
Thanks, everyone. Just a couple things in closing. If you would like to get involved and learn more about the Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Gottlieb would always like to have you sign up for the program that they run for the Citizens Academy for the Sheriff's Office. You can do that, and the other way you can get involved is there's elections going on from the governor's office all the way down, and I hope you'll get out. The primaries are coming up soon. So get out and be registered and get involved in the elections. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.